Pope Francis' funeral attended by world leaders and multitude of mourners. Trump insists he and the Chinese leader have spoken about tariffs and trade, but China says no talks took place. And no specific date so far on the launch date for non-plastic skiing Phase 2. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The funeral for Pope Francis has been taking place in the Vatican. 200,000 people, including world leaders, attended to pay their respects to the 88-year-old who died on Easter Monday. David Garrett reports.
Thousands came to say goodbye. Pope Francis has legacy to be remembered, and this will be a day never forgotten by the estimated 200,000 who were in St. Peter's Square for Francis on his final journey. The coffin was carried from St. Peter's Basilica into the square where crowds massed. It was placed on the ground as the funeral service began. The homily read by Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, who thanked all those who came to pay their respects. He spoke over a microphone so the crowd and the world could hear the eulogy. He said in Italian the outpouring of affection that we have witnessed following his passing from this earth into eternity tells us how much Pope Francis touched hearts and minds. The final image we have of him will remain etched in our memory. The Cardinal referring to the Pope presiding over Easter Mass last Sunday, less than 24 hours before he passed away. Against doctors' orders, the Pope, who'd been ill for some months, toured the same square 6 days ago in his Pope-mobile. Communion followed, bread was broken and holy water and incense sprinkled on Francis's coffin. The Cardinal asked for the Pope to be welcomed into your heavenly dwelling place. It was a grand, poignant show of admiration. US President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump attended earlier. Both approached the coffin before it was taken outside. The President and First Lady representing the United States, which has 50 million Catholics. Former US President Joe Biden and wife Jill also attended. Argentinian President Javier Milei from the country of Francis's birth in 1936. World leaders from across the globe went to pay their respects for their nations. Prince William represented the United Kingdom on behalf of King Charles. Leaders from South America, Africa and Asia passed the coffin in St. Peter's Basilica as 100,000 had done during previous days. They came from far and wide to honour the life of the pontiff. This mourner from the Philippines was keen to celebrate a momentous life.
He's the most humblest person I've ever known. I mean, the simplicity and the way he shepherds all the people, especially the Catholic Church. Not only Catholic Church, he also embraced other religions.
The cardinals who will elect the next pope were some of the first to be seen as the proceedings got underway early on Saturday, Rome time. Cardinal Fernando Filoni spoke for many, saying, Pope Francis reminds us that we are Christians and must live as Christians. It's a beautiful thing. Around 135 cardinals will elect a new pope starting next month after 9 days of official mourning, which have now started. Francis is breaking with recent tradition and will be buried in the St. Mary Major Basilica. A simple underground tomb awaits him with just his name. David Garrett, TVB News.
U.S. President Donald Trump is sticking to his guns and maintaining that he and President Xi Jinping have spoken about tariffs and trade. Chinese authorities, however, insist no talks took place. Trump repeated his claim to reporters on Friday. Nasvi Karim with more.
Donald Trump keeps insisting he has spoken to President Xi Jinping without giving details. Beijing, meanwhile, denies any talks are taking place, refusing to cede to U.S. requests to come to the table. The scenario continues to throw doubt into what progress is being made to de-escalate the trade war between the two countries. Trump was asked again before he left Washington to attend the funeral of Pope Francis in Rome.
You said you spoke with President Xi. Have you spoken to him since the tariffs? When did you last
I don't want to comment on that, but I've spoken to him many times, yeah.
Trump had previously appeared to soften his stance towards tariffs on China, saying the 145% levies would not last forever. Aboard Air Force One, Trump said China would gain if it opened up its markets to U.S. goods, and tariffs would help that happen.
Well, free up China, let us go in and
work China because, frankly, that's what we wanted last time. We almost got it, and then they backed out of that deal. But we had it to go into China and to sell our product, sell our wares. In other words, it's called to open China. That would be great. That would be a big win. But I'm not even sure I'm going to ask for it because they don't want it open.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister Lan Fo-an said at a G20 meeting that world economic growth was insufficient and stifled by tariffs and trade wars. Lan called on all parties to strengthen multilateral cooperation, saying that China supported dialogue and consultation on equal footing to settle trade and tariffs disputes. As a retaliatory measure to U.S. levies, China imposed 125% tariffs on American goods, but has since exempted some imports, such as U.S.-made pharmaceuticals. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
President Xi Jinping has stressed that China needs to recognize its gaps and double efforts in AI innovation, as well as join forces to develop high-end chip technology.
Having hosted a Politburo meeting study session on Friday, President Xi stressed the central government's concern for the development of AI technology. He noted that authorities have strengthened planning for the country's AI development in recent years, but said there are still weaknesses regarding core technological aspects. President Xi also emphasized there is a need to recognize gaps in China's AI development and increase efforts to push for AI innovation. He added that the technology should be used for the development of industries and improvement of governance. President Xi stressed the AI sector must trend towards a healthy, fair, and safe path of development. Regarding the global AI race, he pointed out the need for China to seize opportunities and secure advantages. He said the nation must achieve breakthroughs in basic software and high-end chips, which would bring about a revolution via artificial intelligence and speed up technological innovation. President Xi also emphasized the importance of policies supporting the AI sector, and that broader AI education is needed to nurture an ever-growing pool of talent. He noted the nation's laws have to be improved to ensure the safety of AI. This as the president called for more international cooperation in the field of AI, which will assist the construction of infrastructure in the global south.
Starting tomorrow, Hong Kong Post will stop accepting packages meant to be delivered to the U.S. in the wake of Washington's tariff policy targeting China. Some residents were seen rushing to postal offices for the final opportunity to make their deliveries.
With all packages banned from being sent to the U.S. starting tomorrow, residents were seen flocking to the General Post Office in Central in a last-ditch effort to send their packages to the U.S. A health store shop owner said he will not accept orders from the U.S. for the foreseeable future.
Starting from today, we're going to switch off shipping to the U.S., which is roughly 30% of our business. We just won't accept orders from the U.S. anymore. That's the only option because my understanding is, so look, I mean, Hong Kong Post is the most cost-effective solution for the product that we sell.
A number of residents also voiced their concerns. This man said he has relatives in the U.S. and that he is unable to send them any packages because of the trade war. He noted that he must wait until bilateral relations between Beijing and Washington cool down. Hong Kong Post's measure took effect as a result of Washington having earlier eliminated the duty-free de minimis treatment for postal items sent from Hong Kong and slapping additional tariffs on such packages. The Postal Service has stated that it will not collect any so-called tariffs on behalf of U.S. authorities. Speaking about the U.S.-provoked trade war, Chief Secretary for Administration Eric Chan said the city cannot avoid the short-term effects of the conflict, but pointed out that the SAR governments could seize the opportunity to attract investment in the city. This, as Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, Algernon Yao, said Hong Kong retains the advantage of being a superconnector offered under the One Country, Two Systems principle.
Secretary for Environment and Ecology Zhe Wan today said the first phase regulation of disposable plastic tableware and other relevant products was successful, but he has not confirmed the implementation date for the second phase of the scheme. The second phase prohibits the use of more plastic items, including cups, lids, and containers. Mo Sinai reports.
The government's first phase regulation of disposable plastic tableware has been in force for more than a year. The current phase prohibits restaurants from providing plastic straws and cutlery to dine-in and takeaway customers. Speaking on a radio program, Secretary for Environment and Ecology Zhe Wan said members of the public had developed a habit of bringing their own containers, rating the first part of the non-plastic scheme a success. During relevant legislative work 2 years ago, it was estimated that Phase 2 of the scheme will be launched this year. That would involve the banning of more plastic tableware such as containers, cups, and lids. Ted said the second phase will be rolled out when suitable substitutes are found without specifying a particular date. Some residents said the government should not rush to launch the next phase. People require time to adapt to new changes, and the quality of the substitutes is bad, this man said. Paper containers turn soggy easily. It is not ideal, this woman said. A Chinese restaurant has started using cornstarch and bagasse containers to replace plastic ones. While the costs of the new materials are similar to plastic, the restaurant operator said the latter has a much better quality. Members 9, TVB News.
Still ahead, a U.S. envoy meets Putin and Trump says the deal to end the war in Ukraine is close. A falling bamboo stick hits 2 men in Central Kong. And a look at Singapore's booming concert business. Welcome back. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has met U.S. President Donald Trump in the Italian capital, Rome, where both leaders were attending the funeral of Pope Francis. That's according to a spokesman for Zelensky. No details were released, but the meeting comes after Trump said a U.S. plan to end the Russia-Ukraine war is very close to a deal. It potentially involves Ukraine giving up Crimea, which Russia captured in 2014. Nazmi Karim with more.
Crimea to be recognized as Russian. The eastern and southern provinces of Ukraine captured, annexed and controlled by Russia to also be given de facto recognition as belonging to Moscow, according to Reuters. US President Donald Trump said in a Time magazine interview that Crimea will stay with Russia, and on a social media post said the two sides are very close to a deal.
But we're going to try and get out of war so that we can save 5,000 people a week, and that's what my aim is. I want to save 5,000 young men. They happen to be mostly Ukrainian, Russian, 5,000 young Ukrainian and Russian men, and that's a big honor if I can do it. I think we're pretty close.
But it raises the question as to whom the deal is between, US and Russia or Russia and Ukraine. In Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, this injured Ukrainian soldier said he has many friends from Crimea who want to return home to Ukrainian Crimea, not Russian Crimea. In Crimea, a largely Russian-speaking territory captured by Moscow in 2014, this local resident said she agrees with Trump. At the same time, she doesn't think Ukraine will accept such a deal. Indeed, Ukraine, backed by Europe, see it differently. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was in Kiev, laying flowers at the scene of a Russian drone and missile attack that killed at least 12 people. He said Ukraine's position hasn't changed. All occupied territories belong to Ukraine, he said, according to the country's constitution and international law. Earlier, Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, met Russian President Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin, where they held talks for 3 hours. Putin advisor Yuri Ushakov later said the two sides discussed the possibility of resuming direct talks between Russia and Ukraine. Meanwhile, the fighting rages on. In Ukraine's Sumy region, firefighters tackle a large-scale blaze after an overnight Russian attack injuring 1 person. Nazmi Karim, TVB News.
The Kremlin has blamed Ukraine for a car bomb that killed a senior Russian military officer near Moscow on Friday. 59-year-old Yaroslav Moskalik was killed hours before U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Russian President Vladimir Putin met in Moscow to discuss the war with Ukraine. Moskalik was a deputy head of the main operational department in the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. He died after an explosive device detonated in his car just outside Moscow. It was the second killing of top Russian military officer in 4 months. Igor Kirillov was killed when a bomb hidden on an electric scooter parked outside his apartment building exploded as he left for his office. Ukraine acknowledged responsibility for that attack. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has unveiled a new naval destroyer, claiming it has a significant advancement towards its military's range and strike capabilities. North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency said Kim attended the launching ceremony for the 5,000-ton warship on Friday at the western part of Nampo. Kim framed the arms buildup as a response to perceived threats from the United States and its allies in Asia, who have been expanding joint military exercises in the region. He added his next aim was to acquire a nuclear-powered submarine. The new multi-purpose destroyer is touted by state media as the first in a new class of heavily armed warships. It is designed to handle various weapon systems, including anti-air and anti-naval weapons, as well as nuclear-capable ballistic and cruise missiles. Kim said the destroyer will be handed over to the Navy early next year and begin active duty. 2 people were injured after being hit by a falling bamboo stick in Sampokong this morning. Police cordoned off the area after the incident. On the ground was a meter-long bamboo stick with cracks on it. Police received a report at around 10 a.m. that 2 men were hit by a bamboo stick that had fallen from a nearby scaffolding. One of them suffered a forehead injury while the other reported chest pain. Both were sent to the hospital for treatment. Singapore's booming concert scene has drawn the attention of some Southeast Asian production companies keen to tap its market potential. Some scholars believe the Hong Kong government should also take a more proactive approach in securing superstars to maintain its status as Asia's hub for mega events. Jackie Lin with more.
Boasting a capacity of 55,000 people, this is Singapore's largest concert hall. Having hosted numerous international superstars, American diva Lady Gaga will stage 4 shows here next month. Recognizing the market potential, a Malaysian production company held a fan meeting for South Korean girl group IVE in Singapore last year. The production house officially enters the Singapore market this year. Its manager said the local government has adopted a more proactive attitude in facilitating such events with well-developed amenities. He said the Singapore government not only provides tax incentives, but also funds some specific types of projects. Last year, American pop sensation Taylor Swift held 6 concerts in Singapore. The Singaporean government offered a cash subsidy of $2 to $3 million for each show. Xu Le, a lecturer at the Department of Strategy and Policy at the National University of Singapore's Business School, believes these are successful publicity tactics, but notes that cash boons are unlikely the main reason megastars choose Singapore. She said the logistical support and smooth preparation process have boosted their confidence to stage their shows in Singapore. British band Coldplay performed 4 shows at the main stadium of Kai Tak Sports Park in Hong Kong, which is able to accommodate more than 50,000 people. After the curtain falls, who will be the next international superstar to perform in Hong Kong? Associate Professor Terence Chung of the Department of Economics at the Chinese University of Hong Kong said sincerity of the invitation matters to these world-class singers. He also suggested the government should review the venue leasing process and expedite the approval process to woo such stars to Hong Kong. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thanks for watching.